Good evening, Zimbabwe. You are listening to Studio 7 from the Voice of America on Wednesday, 10 November 2021. This is Livetalk Diaspora Forum. My name is Chris Gande.
And I'm Marvelous Mhlanganya, who are broadcasting from my home in Washington, D.C. due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
And as usual, Marvelous, like you are saying, we would like to inform our listeners that because of the coronavirus pandemic, tonight on the Diaspora Forum, we are not able to give you our usual show since we are broadcasting from our homes.
And our show, Live Talk, goes out to Zimbabwe on the 909 medium wave frequency and on the 4930 and 15460 kilohertz shortwave, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m.
On the internet, you can get us on www.voazimbabwe.com, www.voashona.com, and of course, www.voandebele.com.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to Studio 7 Live Talk. This evening, we're talking about the looming expiration of South Africa's special visas that were granted to more than 250,000 Zimbabweans, known as special permits.
The 4-year visas, which were first issued in 2009 and have been renewed several times, are expected to expire next month.
However, there is mounting pressure from South Africans to force the government to not review these permits.
Today, dozens of South Africans marched to the Zimbabwean embassy protesting against the renewal of the visas.
But first, let's take a look at what's happening on the COVID-19 scene. The COVID-19 pandemic is still with us, so let's take a look at some of the statistics.
As of yesterday, Zimbabwe had 133,242 confirmed cases, including 128,153 recoveries and 4,691 deaths. To date, a total of 3.3 million people have been vaccinated against COVID-19.
And the government says it needs to vaccinate 10 million people for the country to have herd immunity. But there is a bit of good news, as the Ministry of Health reports that only one death was reported yesterday, while 37 people tested positive for the coronavirus in the country yesterday.
To join the show, you can listen to the show as we are broadcasting from our homes, like we said. And lamhlanje sixoxa ngodaba lwe-South Africa lapho sizokuthiwa khona ama-permit lawana aphiwa izizalwane zeZimbabwe ezedlula zona 250,000 kuthiwa khona expire ke ama-permits la ngenyanga ezayo expire ke asazi ukuthi azangezelelwa yini, ngoba kukhanya baningi abadabuka kwele South Africa sebesithi bona hatshi asifuni ukuthi ama-permits lawo akhangelwe aphiwe njalo abantu beZimbabwe. Sikhuluma nje kuthiwa bekulokutshengisela lamhlanje ePretoria, edolobheni lePretoria, izizalwane ze-South Africa zisithi hatshi asifuni abeZimbabwe baphiwe ama-permits la. Marvelous.
Aiwa, tinokuchingamidza pano pachirongwa chedu cheDiaspora Forum, apo tinotarisa zviri kuitika kuzvizvarwa zveZimbabwe zvinogara izvo kunze kwenyika yeZimbabwe. Nhasi pachirongwa chedu tichange tiri kutarisa zvakawanda. Tiri kutarisa isu zviri kuitika panyaya yemapermits akawanikwa iwo achipiwa zvizvarwa zveZimbabwe. Ari kutarisirwa iwo kuti awanikwe iwo achigadziriswa muna December, asi nhasi taona vamwe zvizvarwa zvemuSouth Africa vachiwanikwa vachifora, vachinyunyuta vachiti Zimbabwe kana kuti zvizvarwa zveZimbabwe hazvifanire kuwanikwa izvo zvichipiwa zvakare mukana wekuti mapermits aya awanikwe achigadziriswa. Saka tichange tiri kutarisa, tinoona kuti padandemutande panga paine mahashtag akawanda ari kuwanikwa iwo achiiswa panyaya iyoyi, vanhu vachikurukura kudandemutande reTwitter nemamwewo madandemutande vachiti aiwa zvizvarwa zveZimbabwe hazvifanire kunge zviri kupiwa mapermits iwaya. Asi tichienderera pamberi zvakare tichitarisa zviri kuitika panyaya yeCovid-19, apo tinoona kuti vanhu vanodaidzira vanodaudzira 3 million vawanikwa ivo vachibayiwa nhomba yeCovid-19 munyika. Kunyange nyika iri kuti zvayo inofanira kubaya vanhu vanosvika ivo 10 million, asi regai tiende kumunyarikani wedu wekutanga tinzwe kuti zvakamira sei. Tinokuchingamidzai pano pachirongwa chedu. Halo.
Simave murisei nevateereri venyu.
Aiwa, tiri wadi, tiudzai vateereri vedu kuti ndimi ani, sangano renyu rinonzi ani, uyezve mubva matiudzwa kuti zvakamira sei panyaya yemapemits aya yatiri kuona iri kunetsa padandemutande uyezve pese kune avo zvizvarwa zveZimbabwe zviri muSouth Africa.
Zita ndiDennis Juru, mutungamiriri weInternational Cross Border Traders Association, sangano rinomirira vanhu vari mudiaspora pamwe chete nevanhu vanotenga nekutengesa kunze kweZimbabwe. Hongu idambudziko guru rasangana nezvizvarwa zveZimbabwe izvo zvanga zvadzika midzi munyika yeSouth Africa mushure mekunge vapuwa mukana wekugara munyika iyi mugore ra2010 zvichireva izvo kuti vane makore 11 chete vari munyika yeSouth Africa. Ruzhinji rwevanhu ava vanhu vaiva nemapemits avaibve vainawo, vamwe vanga vasina. Ruzhinji rwanga ruine ma-asylum certificates. Vamwewo vanga vane makore anosvika 10 vari muSouth Africa. Saka hurumende yeSouth Africa yakanyengetedza vanhu vainge vaine mapepa iwayo erudzi rweasylum certificates kuti vange vachienda vachinoasiya kuti vapuhwe mapemits aivapa mukana uri nani, aivapa mukana wekuti vavhure maaccounts, aivapa mukana wekuti vashande, vapa mukana wekuti vavhure makambani, aivapa mukana wekuti vange vachidzidza. Naizvozvo yazosvika nguva yekuti mapemits aya vakapiwa panenge pane kakugomera mukati. Asi tinoona kuti vanhu ava vanga vagara makore akawandisa. Tikasanganisa munhu anga aine makore 10 neasylum seeker certificate yake tikazanganisa ne11 chete, unoona kuti munhu anenge ane makore 21 chete ari munyika yeSouth Africa. Kana ari mwana akazvarwa, mwana atovewo nemwana wake anga achichengetwa nemubereki. Kana iri misha, vamwe vanga vatovhara mikova vachigara munyika yeSouth Africa. Saka zvinhu zviri kutishungurudza chaizvo isu sesangano kuti tichasara tiri papi nevanhu vatinotungamirira, asi hatisi kumira kunge tichitaura nehurumende. Vanopopota vanenge vachipopota havo izvo zvizvarwa zveSouth Africa, asi handione munhu anoenda kubasa chaiye achienda achinoita zvinhu zvakada saizvozvo. Zvinhu zvinoitwa nematsotsi, zvinhu zvinoitwa nevezvematongerwo enyika vanounganidza vanhu vachirwisana nehurumende yeSouth Africa kuti aiwa makaita zvinhu zvisiri izvo pakupa vanhu mapemits. Kunyanya imwe sangano riri kuzvipedza nerekuti Action SA rakakukwidza kekutanga musarudzo dzabva mukuitwa idzi dzekanzuru. So ndo sangano riri kunyanya kurwisana nekuti havachada zvizvarwa zvekunze kwenyika. Asi tichionawo mapepa iwayo kuti vanhu vazopiwa zvakaburikidza mushure mekunge vaMbeki vaenda kuZimbabwe vachiti vari kunogadzirisa zvinhu munyika yeZimbabwe. Vakati aiwa takamirira kuti nyika inake tichambopa zvizvarwa zveZimbabwe mapepa ekuti vange vachigara muSouth Africa. Tinoona kuti zvizvarwa zveZimbabwe zvimwe zvanga zvatenga dzimba nechikwereti, dzimba dzinove dzinobhadharwa mushure memakore 20 zvichienda kumberi. Vamwe vaisarudzawo kuita 25, 30 zvichiendera mberi. Zvizvarwa izvi zvinosara zvakamira papi sekuti mari dzinotorwa mumaaccounts. Zvinoreva kuti zvizvarwa izvi zvinenge zvakurasikirwa nedzimba dzavasenzera makore 11 chete, kwasara makore 9 chete. Saka mamwe matambudziko anofanira kuti hurumende yeSouth Africa inge ichiona kuti zvinofamba sei, atakavaonesawo. Tinotori nezvizvarwa zveZimbabwe, vana vakazvarwa muSouth Africa vane 21 years kuti havatoziya kana kuZimbabwe kwachona vanoenda kupi vana ivavo.
Vajuru, tiri kunzwa kuti pane vamwe vawanikwa vachiratidzira nhasi vachienda kumuzinda weZimbabwe uri muPretoria ikoko. Vaonawo here ava, uyezve vari kutambirwa sei vanhu ava, nekuti tinoona kuti padandemutande pane kutatsurana kuri kuitika pakati pezvizvarwa zveZimbabwe nezvizvarwa zvemuSouth Africa. tichitoona paine mahashtag ekuti vanhu ngavanyimwe mapermits. Kwakamira sei ikoko kuSouth Africa?
Dai mahashtag achisenza kana hurumende yeZimbabwe ingadai yakatobva kudhara. Hurumende dzeSouth Africa kainotarisa kuti kuve kumaZimbabwe havana kungovapa mapermits, vakatoyerasa pachikero kuti tivape, tiri kuvapirei, zvinotibatsirei, chii chatinowana sehurumende. Saka hazvigoni kuti vangomuka vachiti vakutorera zvizvarwa zveZimbabwe mapermits. Isusu takaudza hurumende yeSouth Africa tikati vanenge vakaita dzimhosva ngavatorerwa mapermits. Vasina kuita mhosva, vanhu vanga vachibhadhara matax, vanhu vanga vachiita zvese zvinodikanwa, handione paine chikodzero yekuti vanhu vange vachinyimwa mapermit. Kunyanya tinoona vatyairi sisi mavhe. Nyaya yevatyairi yanga ichitinetsei kuti zvonzi vatyairi ndivo vari kutorera zvizvarwa South Africa mabasa. Hazvina kumira saizvozvo. Pakaita matambudziko muZimbabwe, varidzi vemakambani vakapinda muSouth Africa vachibva kuZimbabwe, vakauya nevashandi vashoma, inonzi pachirungu kuzobatsira neinstitutional memory, nekuti haukwanisi kungosotanga kambani usina munhu ari kuziva kuti zviri kufamba sei, zvinotangira papi, unoita loss. Uye zvekare hakuna muSouth African angabve muSouth Africa achienda kuDRC onoita mwedzi asiri muSouth Africa, hazvibude simavhe. So tinoona kuti vanhu ava vari kuisa hurumende yeSouth Africa pakona pakanyanyisisa, pekuti ikada kuti ifadze vanhu inobva yauraya upfumi hwayo. Nerumwe rutiviwo inofanira kuti itaurirane nevanhu kuti vanzwisise kuti aiwa, nyika yakaita seDubai ine 70% yevabva kure, 30% yepopulation yeDubai ndo vanhu vemunyika imomo. Saka kuva nemaforeigners hakusiko kunouraya ikonomi yenyika.
Okay, thank you so much Mr. Juru. NgesiNdebele ungasitshela ukuthi kuhamba njani ngendaba yama-permits?
Sibona ukuthi izizalwane zaseSouth Africa ziyakhona ngodaba lokuthi abaqhamuka ngaseZimbabwe kufanele babuyele ekhaya, laba abalama-permits awabizwayo ngokuthi Zimbabwe exemption permits. Kodwa masikhangele labantu, sibona ukuthi ngabantu abakade bekhona la eSouth Africa kusukela kudala, abanye sebela more than 20 years bekhona la eSouth Africa. So siyabona ukuthi labantu bakhombisa ukuthi ngabantu abalungileyo, ngabantu abangayenziyo amacala, ngoba ma urenewal le-permit bayakuthatha ama-fingerprints babona ukuthi awuyenzanga icala yini. So angiboni ukuthi igovernment yeSouth Africa ingalalela labantu makho ukuthi ifuna ukuthi i-economy iqhubeke isiya phambili. Njalo masikhangele ama-drivers, siyabona ukuthi ama-drivers ase-South Africa angeke bakhwanise ukuthi baye DRC baqede inyanga yonke bengekho eSouth Africa. So siyabona ukuthi ngama-organization nje la ama-political parties awafanayo ne-SA Action SA awayenzayo ukuthi i-government yeSouth Africa iyenze kungani ayiwazi into abayenzayo. Kodwa ngiyabona ukuthi angeke balalele izinto zama-hashtag, angeke balalele izinto zabantu abathoyayo, ngoba labantu yizigebengu nje, akuso abantu base-South Africa ama-ordinary people, ngabantu bama-politics abazame ukungcolisa i-government yeSouth Africa.
Okay, thank you so much. There siyabonga, ungabamba kancane sizama ukufaka abanye esilabo lapha. Unfortunately, Marvelous, we have Mr. Vusumuzi Sibanda and Mr. Bongani Mkhwanazi. Both of them, I can't see them, or I can see they are there, but I can't see them. I don't know whether it's the network issue. Mr. Let's try. Is that Mr. Mkhwanazi?
Chris, if they could log out and then come back in again, that might actually help. But going back to Mr. Juru, if he's still here,
wait, Marvelous. Let's try also, because we have another guest as well, Mr. Vusumuzi. Can you hear me?
Hear you, though you've gone a little bit faint.
A little bit faint, but I think we can hear you.
Yes,
What about now?
Yes. Go ahead.
So, yes, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, and
Yes.
greetings to you and your listeners.
Oh, thank you so much. Can you tell us what is the situation right now regarding the permits? Because we understand that the South African Parliament has been debating this issue. What are you hearing about it?
Well, there is nothing official that has been communicated from government up to now. I mean, you can only, read a couple of, news bulletins from unofficial also, news, that come from the internet, but not from the so credible, maybe sources like your Citizens, your Sowetan, and so forth. So as it stands, the position is still that the government of South Africa is very quiet about whether it will extend or not.
But what about the pressure, the mounting pressure that we are hearing from some quarters who are pushing for the government not to allow the renewal? What are you hearing about that?
Well, look, the prerogative we must accept lies with the South African government. So at the end of the day, pressure, that could obviously be against and for the permits is merely what it is, and that is that pressure only. Now, you will appreciate that the government of the ANC has drastically, lost in the elections starting from 2016 to 2015, to now in 2021. And one of the major issues that seems to be very problematic, which is also highlighted by the results of, the recent elections, is that a new party like, Action South Africa, which is very anti-migrant, has come in and it has scooped a huge number of votes. And we know that in the previous presidential elections or national elections that we had in, I think it was 2019, the DA was very vociferous when it comes to issues of migration as an anti-migrant party. And that also helped them to relatively appear like they were scoring a good number of points. Now, what in essence that means is South Africa is at a point where there is a crisis, there is high levels of unemployment, there is dissatisfaction with the levels of service delivery across the country, and a lot of services, are not being received by the people the way they expect them. And this has put a lot of pressure on the government to ensure that it can review or rethink its policy and decisions towards, migrants. And Zimbabweans, unfortunately, are a group of people that appear not to be very likable, to South Africans. But what you will appreciate, obviously, is that the issue of these particular permits and the government is that there is an impact because the South African government has not had to say anything up until so late because it is concerned, that if it had to preempt that it is renewing the permits, then it could have lost more votes. But again, it could be an issue of saying it is trying as much as is possible, to keep it until the last minute. But we know that the Minister of Home Affairs is not a fan of these particular permits.
Vasibanda, imi munoona kunge zvichafamba sei? Nekuti tinoona zvizvarwa zveZimbabwe zvizhinji zviri kuchema zvichiti nguva yasara kuti vanyatsoziva kuti mapemits aya vachapiwa here kana kuti kwete yashoma.
Well, nemaonero atiri kuita tiri kuona kuti chichaitika ndechekuti zvinogona kuitika kuti government iti iri kuda kuextenda nekuti inenge ichitarisa kuti kana ichinge isina kuextenda mapemits iwaya inogona kuzosangana nenyaya dzekukoti dzinofanana neiyi yakatoendeswa kukoti kuti vanhu vagarisa muno munyika yeSouth Africa zvokuti vakufanirwa kuti vave nemapermanent residence pamwe chete necitizenship. Asi hatizvioni zvakare izvi kuti zvinogona kuitika nenyaya yekuti vari kutya kuendeswa kukoti nokuti tinoziva kuti Department of Home Affairs ine mhosva dzakawanda dziri kukoti nenyaya yekuti inobata sei vanhu vanobuda kunze ma-asylum seekers uye nema-migrants. Saka tinoziva kuti havazvitye izvozvo. Kana vasingadi vachangoramba zvavo vati aiwa hatidi. Asi tinoziva zvekare kuti bumbiro remutemo wemuno muSouth Africa inova constitutional court inogona kusvika pachinhando chekuti vanhu ava magariro avaita muno munyika munomu ngavachipiwa kuti vagare muno sezvizvarwa zvemuno nenyaya yekuti vagarisa munyika muno zvinokwana makore anosvika 10. Now, kana tichitarisa mutemo weugare hwemunyika unoti munhu kana achinge agara kwemakore 10 anofanirwa kunge apiwa ugare hwemunyika. Izvozvo ndizvo chete zvinopa vanhu kodzero yekuti vafunge kuti vanogona kuzochinjwa mumapemits aya vaende kucitizenship. Asi izvi tinoziva kuti kana zvaenda chero kukoti chaiko, minister vanogona kusvika kuti aiwa mapemits aya ari special akatoiswa nesection 32 yeImmigration Act zvokuti minister vanopa votorera vanhu. Takapa vanhu ava nekuti taibatsira ende tikataura kuti hatizogone kuti aite mapermanent residence. Saka iyoyo ndio inenge iri nyaya yavanenge vachiramba nayo kuti vape zvizvarwa zveZimbabwe permanent residence kana citizenship. Asi izvozvo panongori nedambudziko rimwe chete panyaya iyoyo. Dambudziko iroro nderekuti vanhu kana vachinge vagara makore 5 vanonzi mapermanent resident nekuti vanozivikanwa kuti aiwa vanhu ava vagare vachidzokera. Saka vanhu vakutariswa vanogara muno kana vasvitsa makore 10 vanenge vakufanirwa kuti vanzi zvizvarwa. Ndiro dambudziko racho iroro. Saka patakatarisa iko zvino tinoona kuti chero chii chinogona kuitika. Vanogona kuramba, vanogona kutenda kuti aiwa ngaparinyuwe. Asi tinoziva kuti Minister of Home Affairs vanenge minister vasinganyatsofarira chaizvo nyaya yevanhu vanobva kunze kwenyika. Uye tinoziva kuti ANC iri pamatambudziko makuru nekuti iri kurasikirwa nemavotes nenyaya yevanhu vanobva kunze kwenyika.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, marvelous. We have Mr. Bongani Mkwanazi. You know, he works with Nabuto Mabena of the Zimbabweans in South Africa. But I don't seem to see him on the video. I hope he can hear us. Can you hear us, Mr. Mkwanazi? We are seeing Mkwanazi. Looks like
network.
Yeah.
I had a question actually for Mr. Sibanda that are you in any way actually conversing with the South African government to find out what their position is so that you can go back and communicate with Zimbabweans in South Africa?
Well, look, there has been a lot of communication, of course, I mean, informally so, and maybe not completely formal, because the government has said that it will announce and it will say it, you know, when the time is right. The issue again is basically that we understand that it's going to be very difficult for the government not to renew the permits, especially, you know, out of the legitimate expectation that is born out of the number of times that the permits have been renewed. So to a certain extent, you know, as much as we are, you know, slightly anxious, we are also very hopeful that if the government of South Africa does not renew these permits, the courts will be in a better position to give rather, you know, a permanency to these kind of permits, because as the permits stand right now, there are permits that are very segregatory and that make life a bit impossible, you know, for the Zimbabweans, especially after 10 years, because they still reduce their rights, you know, immensely. If one is given a permit as self-employed, that person cannot find any other job but must remain self-employed. If a person is given a permit as a student, it means that person must stay as a student. If anything changes, they say the permit has changed conditions, and therefore the person loses, you know, the right to that permit and has got to go to Zimbabwe and apply afresh. And this is why the numbers, when we started, it was at 250,000. As of the last, I think, application status, we had 190-something thousand, you know, down to those with the rejections, I think it was up to 175,000.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, we now have Mr. Mkwanazi. Mr. Mkwanazi, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you, Chris, and thanks, Marvelous, and the viewers.
Yes, Mr. Mkwanazi, my first question is, what is the latest? I know your organization has been on the forefront of these visas, and you have managed to talk to South African officials regarding this issue. Now, what is it that you are hearing about these permits so far?
On the permit issue, the Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Aaron Mzwaneti, has presented the issue to the cabinet as per other representations that have come through via other stakeholders, including his own desk, including the embassy, including some bilateral meeting, where the announcement will then have to be met by the cabinet. People have to appreciate that these permits came at a year when the government of South Africa and the political landscape of South Africa had elections in them, and there was lockdowns and all the other issues. So much that we have to understand people were busy with other affairs that had immediate impact. Not to say they neglected our own issue, but they were aware. All the talks were there behind the scenes, so they are very much aware of what needs to happen. So, as Zimbabwe community South Africa, we would not want to preempt and pressure the government of South Africa into announcing, because, like the minister said, the permits expire on the 31st of December. There is some time before this happens. That's a month and a half or so.
So what are you hearing about the pressure that the South African government is getting from some South Africans not to renew the permits?
There's a small section of people, constituting very, very small section really, who are not very happy that these permits are going to be renewed, and would like to then say, because of the economic prospects of the country and the situation right now, they would feel, why would South Africa renew permits in a country that has high unemployment? All these Twitter pressures, it's not the first time that they were there. Now, in so saying, we're not diminishing the feeling of the South Africans who are protesting this and saying, no, you have no case. They have their own case in terms of articulating the job and unemployment rates, but these permits, they also have to understand they came out of a deep thought by the South African government since 2010, who realized that a lot of people were on asylum documents, and some people were on fraudulent documents, some people were illegal, and they needed to account for all these people to say, who are these people? And a lot of people applied. So the section of South Africans who feels this is taking away from them need to understand these are the same people still within the same jobs that they would have had since 2010 mostly. And these are people who have started life and created livelihoods, social networks, professional networks in the country, and their lives have been here since. So to suddenly render more than 180,000 people as illegal immigrants will not be in the best interest of both South Africans and the Zimbabweans who will lose the permits. It is actually a mutual benefit for the Zimbabweans to get the permits and the South Africans to be able to account for who is doing what and who stays where and who are these people. So rendering them illegal, it actually defeats the whole purpose of the permits regime started in 2010.
Oh, thank you so much. NgesiNdebele ungasitshela nje ngamafitshane ukuthi udaba lwama-permit lumi ngaphi sikhuluma nje?
Njengamanje udaba lwama-permit soluhleze etafuleni lwekhabhinethi yase-South Africa ngemva kokuthi umphathi wezangaphakathi lapha we-Home Affairs yase-South Africa uDr Aaron Motsoaledi eselwethule lapho kukhabhinethi. Kulindwe ukuthi kwenziwe ikhabhinethi isinqumo ukuthi lophathwa njani lolu daba. Thina njengeZimbabwe Community South Africa sithi abantu abehlisa amaphaphu asikwazi ukuthi thina sifake ingcindezi.
Oh.
Yeah, we seem to have lost our guest there.
Yes, yeah, we lost him, but we still have other guests as well. We'll now shift to Mr. Juru for his insights. I don't seem to see. I think Juru has also dropped. We just have Mr. Vusumuzi Smanda only. He's the one I can't see him too. I don't know what's happening. Yeah, he's back, but You can't. Okay, go ahead.
Varunga vari kutaura ivo kuti vari kutarisira kuti vachanzwa kubva kuhurumende yeSouth Africa nekuti pachiri nenguva kuti hurumende yeSouth Africa iwanikwe iyo ichibuda ichitaura paimire panyaya yemapermits iwaya. Ndokutaura kwanga kuri kuita vanyarikani vedu ipo pano vachitaura ivo kuti zvakawanda zvekuitwa, pane mapressure group ari kubuda. Tikuona vanga vari kutaura ivo kuti pane rimwe bato rakatowanikwa iro richivhoterwa pasarudzo dzichange dzabva kuitwa muSouth Africa, riri kutaura iro kuti harifarire zvevanhu vekunze kwenyika. Asi ndabva ndaona vamukwananzi vadzoka, regai tinzwe kuti vaenderere mberi nekutaura kwavo. Taura henyu.
Mara ndadzoka. Besaqhubeka ngisathi mina uhulumende wase-South Africa sikwazi ukumfaka ingcindezi enkulu. Kumele sizwisise ukuthi udaba lolu lumehlela ngesikhathi ilizwe belilokhetho. Ngakho nje ngesikhathi sokhetho nabo bebegijigijima ngezokhetho. Ngakho-ke kumele sikuzwisise ukuthi kusasele isikhala esibanga ngoba i-South African government yiyo elamandla ukuthi makurenyuwa kwenziwa njani. Okutsho ukuthi within the next 1.5 months kusiyafika u-31 December kusaselethuba impela lokuthi bamemezele ukuthi hayi kuzayenzakala ukuthi nokuthi. Ezinye zezinqumo ezizothathwa ziyothathwa ngemva kwalokho. Kodwa-ke asikhangelelanga thina ukuthi uhulumende wase-South Africa angakunanzelela ukuthi amaphemithi alusizo kuzizalwane zeZimbabwe la kuye uhulumende wase-South Africa ngoba usekwazi ukuthi usibani ungubani ukuyiphi indawo. Kanti bekulohlupho lapha eSouth Africa olukhulu lwezizalwane zangaphandle la sezimbabwe ikakhulu ade zingelamaphepha zingaziwa ukuthi zingaphi. Kudala ukungaphephi, kudala ukuxokozela ukuthi abantu abaziwa ukuthi ubani ungubani wenzani. So asilindelanga thina impendulo embi, kodwa yona leyo mpendulo esizoyithola njengezimeli zabantu sizokwazi ukuthi siyiphathe njani ngemva kokuthi imenyezelwe. Esingakucela ebantwini ukuthi abehlise amaphaphu, kuchiye lokhu kutatazela nokukhoselana kwamazwi esesikubona kusenzakala lapha ku-Twitter. Sikhale futhi nakuzizalwane ze-South Africa ukuthi zikuzwisise ukuthi la amaphemithi akusikho ukuthi aqale namhlanje. La amaphemithi yingxoxo ezasukela ku-2010 ngezizathu ezazibonakala ngaleso sikhathi. Sicele laba abanye mhlawumbe asebebona ngathi sokumele kuhanjiswane ezinkantolo ukuthi linanzelele ukuthi lawo maphemithi ayi-political decision eyisicelo sokulungisa ukuthi abantu bathole ukuhlala besebenza bekhululekile, bengabotshwa, bengaharaswa. Nakhona nje la maphemithi anemigomo nengcindezi ase-renewe kathathu. Kusho kona ukuthi i-negotiation thina iyiyo into esiyithembileyo njengeZimbabwe Community South Africa ukudila nalolu daba kuloku kuhambisana ezinkantolo. Akukafiki leso sibanga sokuhanjisana ezinkantolo, asibekezelele.
Okay, thank you so much. Marvelous, you heard him there. He's talking about, that there's no need yet to go to court to push this matter. So, go ahead.
Aiwapo tirikunzwa vamukwananzi vari kutaura ivo kuti pari zvino hapasati pane nguva yekuti kana kuti vanhu havafanira kunge vari kutora danho rekuti vaenda kumatare vachinopikisa mutongo kana kuti nyaya iyoyi, nekuti pachiri nenguva kusvika pachapera mwedzi unouya kuti hurumende yeSouth Africa iwanikwe iyo ichitaura paimire pamusoro pemapepa iwaya kana kuti maspecial permits aya.
Yes, Marvelous, I don't know what's wrong with our other guests.
No,
I think
it's a network issue, but I'll go ahead and ask Mr. Kwananzi that have you been directly engaging with the South African authorities to find out when exactly they are likely to make a decision?
We had quite a few engagements and meetings. We've discussed with all stakeholders. So we are comfortable that our case is well understood. We presented our case as well as to our embassy to present at a bilateral. We feel things are all set to have a better outcome. We cannot preempt or presume what the South African authorities will say. Ours was to present a case to say there is a situation, there is 183,000 people or so that will have permits expire. This is the situation that they are in, and we ask that they renew these permits. The matter was accepted to be heard. It has been delivered to the Cabinet of South Africa. I would say surely that is enough for us, and we then await the outcome without presuming what they will do or say.
Yeah, we heard from Mr. Vusu Manda that the figures or the numbers of the people who had applied, initially there were 250,000, but they've gone down. What would you say is the reason why the numbers are going down?
The other people have maybe since passed away, others have given up on staying in South Africa. But this is one of the important things about giving the people who are here in South Africa permits. Because they now are able to be mobile and flexible and move back to Zimbabwe and back to South Africa without worry that.
Oh, looks like we have a bad connection day to day, Marvelous.
Yes, it happens because in the time that we are, everybody's working from home.
Yes.
But apo tanga tiri kunzwa vamukwananza vanga vari kuramba vachitaura.
Hello, I think I have lost my co-host too. Marvelous is Marvelous. Can you hear me? Hello. Yeah, I think we have a big problem today, a network issue, I guess. Mr. Mkwananzi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh.
So what I was saying is that from the 250,000 or so figure, what it shows you is that once you give people permits and they have no worry that when they leave the country, they are able to come back when they need to buy groceries or do whatever they need to do in the country and return back home, it actually creates a fluidity, and there will be less and less people who actually need to stay here permanently or illegally. So it is actually in the best interest of South Africa, as shown by evidence that we started at 250,000 people, and some people have given up on these permits because they are now able to move in and out of the country, so they don't really need to be renewing these permits. Perhaps some have since passed away and so forth and so forth, but it is actually a good thing that people are given these permits, and it creates visibility and mobility.
Yeah, but we have heard that in South Africa there is close to 5 million. I mean, the figures vary from source to source. Some say there could be 4 million, some say there could be 5 million people in South Africa. From your organization's point of view, you are dealing with how many Zimbabweans in South Africa?
When we say 5 million, I guess we are referring to Zimbabweans. I think it's quite an exaggeration. Zimbabwe itself has 13 million to 14 million people. If we had 5 million of them next door, it would be quite dramatic. Let's be just generous and say 250,000 acknowledged to apply for permits, right? And be it very dramatic and multiply that number maybe by 4. And then be another dramatic and give another 500,000 illegal immigrants. I will struggle to reach 2 million. I doubt that number is feasible, that people can say there's 5 million Zimbabweans. But we deal with a lot of people, and in general, we represent all the people with permits or without permits.
But what about the pressure that is being exerted on social media? And also, we understand there was a protest today in Victoria. Do you think this will likely maybe sway the decision of the government whether to award these permits or not?
It is a potential, it has got that potential, but remember, the South African government has the unenviable position of not being a layman. They have to balance a lot of things in terms of these permits, and they are fully aware of the security nature of these permits, the fact that rendering 183,000 people illegal, the impact of this. And they also have compassion and empathy and understand all these circumstances. So they are going to most likely weigh all these circumstances on the table and see. I don't think the South African government is that kind of government that just is swayed by public opinion, even if it sees that this is detrimental to the welfare of the country. They unfortunately have to sit down and weigh things in a mature fashion, which has a positive impact to the country. In as much as the South African government would want to listen to every other person, the reality that they would face is that some of the circumstances and the environmental conditions can't allow that they render people illegal and start to have costs in deportations, in all sorts of legal wrangles, in all sorts of challenges that this has impact. It is much easier to put conditions for the permits than to refuse them, I would think.
Thank you so much.
Yes. So when you talk of the numbers, you said it's not. It could be around 2 million. Why is it that only 250,000 applied? What was the rest? What can they apply, and what would you think was the reason?
Remember, I was saying I'm actually using ridiculous exponentials. You might find maybe there's 1.2 to 1.5 million people in Zimbabwe, but still, when at the time of application of these permits, there was a fear that this might be a trap. Some sections of society went around telling people not to go and participate in the documentation. The fear was that this will be a trap, and the South African authorities were trying to trap people. We did encourage at the time. I still remember Comrade Mabuto Mapena calling meetings at Berea Park and all these places and asking people to ask him to come to their homes and organize them in 4s or 5s. We did try to encourage people, but some missed out. The other problem that we had in 2010 was we found that a lot of people did not have Zimbabwean documents to be able to use as documents to apply. So even the registrar's office had to send some people to South Africa to help apply. The South African government was actually very lenient with some of the applications. While some people were waiting for passports, they could still submit the application because it needed to document. So even currently, we still face a situation similar to 2010 because most passports have started to expire or have expired, and we find our government back home in Zim is a bit too slow in renewing people's passports, and this is going to cause them problems when they try to renew. And it's something that we really are.
Aiwa, apo tanga tiri kunzwa vamukwananzi vari kutaura ivo. Chris avhunza iye kuti kosei muri kuti imi pane vanhu 250,000 chete, yet kune vanhu vakati one day zvizvarwa zvezimbabwe zviri muSouth Africa zvinogona kusvika kuma2 million. Sei kune vanhu vashoma vakawanikwa vachinyoresa mapepa? Vamukwananzi vari kuti ivo nyaya yakanyanyonetsa inyaya yezvinhu zvakadai semabirth certificate, mapassport, asi vakati registrar general wekuzimbabwe akatowanikwa achitumira vanhu panguva iyoyo kuti vauye kuzopa vanhu mabhethi nezvimwe zvakadaro. Saka ndo zvavanga vari kuedza kutsanangura kuti pari zvino sangano ravo munguva iyoyo pakaitika chirongwa ichi vaiedza kudzidzisa vanhu kukosha kwakaita kuti vanhu vanyoresa, asi vamwe vaitya nezvaitaurwa padandemutande kumawhatsapp nekumwewo. Chris.
Yes, marvelous. Unfortunately, today is a really bad day. We have lost all our guests. I think it's because of network problems. But anyway, marvelous. Talking about the politics of this issue, the visas, and what happened in the elections, it's quite a sad thing because now people are saying those parties which support people from other countries like the ANC and including the EFF itself, parties that did not get enough votes, did not do well. So it means if as a party they chase away foreigners, then the people are going to vote for them, which is very sad indeed.
Yeah, I think actually one of our guests said that Mr. Juru actually came up and said something like that. He said that's what is so worrying because that's what they've seen on the ground. And I think also Mr. Sibanda, before he dropped off, also shared the same sentiment that, you know, politics is kind of getting in the way, but they are hopeful. That's the one message that I got from, you know, most of the bulk of our guests said they are hopeful that South Africa will do the right thing, that the South African government will do the right thing that's going to benefit their country and Zimbabweans that are staying in South Africa.
I just got a message from Mr. Mkwananzi. He says, unfortunately, he's gone now to another meeting. So I think, Marvelous, for today, we can say good night to our listeners. Since we don't have our guests anymore.
Is our time up?
It's almost, but there's nothing else we can do because the guests are all unable to join.
Aiwapo tanga tiine vanyarikani vedu vanga vari pano pachirongwa chedu tichitarisa isu nyaya yemapepa ekuti zvizvarwa zvezimbabwe zvigare muSouth Africa. Nezuro ndanga ndiri kuInstagram ndikaona kuine zvimwe zvizvarwa zvezimbabwe vanga vari kutaura pamusoro pekurambidzwa kwakaitwa mumwe anogara imo muSouth Africa anozivikanwa nezita rekuti Somizi kuti auye kuZimbabwe pamusoro pekuti vamwe vemachechi zvinonzi vakati anoita zveungochanisa saka anga asingakwanisi kuti auye kuzoita basa raanga adedzerwa kuZimbabwe. Saka vanga vari kutaura pachirongwa ichi Chris vanga vari kuti ivo zvinhu zvakadaro ndo zvimwe zvinhu zvazoita kuti pawanikwe ipo zvizvarwa zveSouth Africa zvichiwanikwawo zvakare zvichibva zvadzvanya kuti aiwa since Zimbabwe iri kurambidzawo zvizvarwa zveSouth Africa kuti zvipinde muZimbabwe, sei South Africa iri kubvumidzawo zvizvarwa zveZimbabwe kuti zvishande muSouth Africa. Saka ndo mamwe atingati zviri kutaurwa mumadandemutande umu panyaya iyoyi yaSomuzi kuti akarambidzirwei kupinda munyika yeZimbabwe. Zvingawanikwe here zvichizoita kuti nyaya iyi yemapepa iwanikwe ichikwidza makata kana kuti kwete? Amenoti unoonawo sei, what's your view? Do you think this Somizi issue will actually play into the politics of what we're seeing happening?
Of course, I think it might have a bit of impact, not much, considering, of course, that Somizi is a very popular person. But remember, there was also another group, South African group, a couple of years back called Freshly Ground, which did a song called Chicken to Change.
Oh, yes, who were denied entry into Zimbabwe.
They were also denied, you know. So, of course, there are all those sentiments. And I don't know if you saw the exchange between Hopewell Chingono and the former mayor of Johannesburg, Mr. Mashaba, who is the leader of the party that most South Africans are now referring to as having been successful in the past election, because that party is known to hate foreigners.
I mean, those are some of the, what I'm saying, that, you know, social media has been very, very, you know, active in this issue, in the issue of immigration and the relationship between Zimbabwe and South Africa. So yes, I do follow what's going on Twitter, but like what I said, I actually had an opportunity to listen into a conversation where the youth were debating about this issue, about papers, and there were people that were actually calling in from South Africa saying that, you know, they felt what happened to Somizi might impact them negatively. But those are, you know, just sentiments. And Mr. Juru, who came in, actually said, in his view, he says, no, he doesn't think that hashtags would change anything, or else there would be a change of government in Zimbabwe, quote unquote. That's what he said.
Yes, I think it's true. You know, social media doesn't have that much of impact in politics. I mean, of course, it does have, especially in social issues, it really plays a big role. But when it comes to politics, of course, we had our own president here in the United States who used social media in such a way that we've never seen before. But that's something else, because in Zimbabwe right now, yes, people are using the hashtags and so forth, but they don't seem to be working.
I think, it's a divided opinion, because when you go back to the United States here, where we saw the president, especially he became known as the Twitter president, because he would literally make decisions and announce them on Twitter. For him, it worked while he was in office, we have to say, because people were really following his Twitter. And I have to also say, we've seen, places like Zambia as well, that they say they used a lot of social media in their own election campaign, and that might have worked in their favor. But Zimbabwe is also doing the same, and we don't know what the outcome will be for 2023. So it's interesting. We will keep, our ears on the ground to see what happens with this immigration issue. December is fast approaching, so very soon we will be getting, a response from the South African government regarding what happens to Zimbabwe.
Yes, it's really a pity. I hope they are going to be given the visas, because we saw the numbers. I was surprised that the numbers have dropped so significantly. It seems like people don't care anymore, or whatever the reasons they have. It seems like the numbers have gone down. So it won't hurt the South Africans to grant the almost 100,000 people visas, I think.
Aiwa, nhasi tanga tiine chirongwa chatanga tiri kuzeya pamusoro penyaya yemapepa kana kuti maspecial permits muSouth Africa ari kuwanikwa iwo achinzi ari kupera kwemwedzi unotevera. Saka tanga tine vanyarikani vedu vanga vari pano, vanga vari kutaura ivo, tichionesana kuti zvakamira sei, vachititaurirawo kuti vari kutaurirana nevamwe vavo muhurumende yemuSouth Africa, uyezve nemamwe mapato akazvimirira pamusoro penyaya iyoyi yemapepa. Asi vanga vari kuti ivo mune zvavataura pari zvino vari kutarisira kuti zvichafamba zvakanaka pachasvika mwedzi unouya, kana kuti kupera kwemwedzi unouya, panyaya yemapepa iwaya. Asi ndo zvimwe zvaticharamba tichingotarisa, tichidzokazve kwamuri, tichikupai mamiriro akaita nyaya iyoyi.
Yes, marvelous. Before we go, I hoped to pull up a video. It's on coronavirus, and let's see if we can be able to play this video before we go and see. It talks about coronavirus here in the United States, and how there's still resistance from some people, and so to get the virus, the vaccination.
Aiwa, apo tinoda kuti tione isu vhidhiyo yezviri kuitika imo muno muAmerica, umo vamwe vachiri kuramba kubaiwa nhomba yeCovid-19. Tinoona kuti bazi rezveutano, amai Agnes Mahomva, vakange vari pastudio 7 vachitaura ivo kuti dambudziko riri kunyanyonetsa idambudziko rekuti vanhu vanonyanyoteerera zvavanoona padandemutande pakadai pana WhatsApp nekumwewo panenge pari kutaurwa zvimwe zvinhu zvinoita kuti vanhu vasazoda kuwanikwa ivo vachibayiwa nhomba dzeCovid-19. Asi vakati kune vanhu ngavawanikwe vanhu vachienda kunotaura navana mazvikokota vatingati vai madhokta kana vana chiremba, kuti vanyatsonzwisisa panyaya yenhomba yeCovid-19. Chris.
Yes, marvelous. The video is now up and running. Let's hear.
On top of his usual to-do list, Oleg Gulen, pastor at the Russian Protestant Church in Los Angeles, California, has a lot of papers to fill out. Every now and then, his parishioners ask him to sign a note exempting them from the COVID-19 vaccination because of religious reasons.
At this point, I sign such exemption notes for all my parishioners who want one. It is free form, and I just write that according to our beliefs, we don't consider it is the right thing to receive this vaccine.
In California, it is possible to get a COVID-19 vaccination exemption because of religious beliefs.
There are two criteria that need to be met.
One is that it's a sincerely held belief. And that's sort of a vague term, but it really means that there's a demonstrated in that individual that they have because of their religion, not done a certain thing like vaccines. And the second is actually that the leadership of the religion endorses this approach to be exempted. The faithful don't want to get vaccinated because of how the vaccine was tested and its composition.
One of the religious claims that is raised against COVID-19 vaccine is that they have some link to fetal cells from abortions from the 1960s. The J&J vaccine uses fetal cell in production. The mRNA vaccines do not, but when the concept was tested, they used those cells to test it. And some people are saying we oppose because of this use.
After California started introducing restrictions for unvaccinated residents, requests for religious exemptions grew. Thousands of firefighters and medical workers have brought such exemptions from churches to their workplaces. But not all of them were allowed to forego vaccination.
Not only people can use this exemption to try and get out of getting the shot, even if they're not really religiously opposed, but people do. And we know it because people are attending workshops on how to get a religious exemption.
That's why employers take their time to review exemptions on a case-to-case basis.
So if someone has gotten vaccine in the past, they may have a higher burden convincing that they are indeed sincere in saying it's about religion, but it's not an insurmountable barrier because first, people can change their religious view. They can get religion later. And second, sometimes people can say, I didn't know the facts that would lead me to oppose.
Los Angeles resident Anatoly Koptev, who got an exemption because of religious reasons, says he places all his faith on God.
Yes, maybe I had some vaccines in the past, but then I became religious, and my faith does not allow me to get vaccinated. This could have happened yesterday, and I am getting an exemption today. And I don't think I can be judged because I came to religion this late.
Experts say that California authorities can ban religious exemptions at any moment. And in that case, the faithful will have to either get vaccinated or go to court. For Angelina Bagdasaryan in Los Angeles, California, and Arise VOA News.
Thank you so much. Marvelous. That was a video there showing how religion is playing an impact on coronavirus vaccinations. What's your take on that?
Chris, it's interesting that it's California where this is coming from. And like what the reporter said, at the moment, it's allowed for them to actually use that exemption note. But we've seen in the United States, the president himself has actually mandated that all federal workers be vaccinated, although there's debate on what that means. So it will be interesting to watch and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Also interesting, was the fact that some religions are banning the vaccination because of the way that it was tested. They use fetuses and stuff like that. I didn't know.
Aiwa kunzwa zviri kuitika iko kuno kuAmerica uko vamwe vanopinda svondo dzakasiyana siyana vari kuonekwa vachiramba kubayiwa nhomba yeCovid-19 vachiti hazvienderani nezvitendero zvavo. Vari kutaura ivo kuti nhomba idzi magadzirirwo adzakaita hazvisi zvinoenderana navo.
Yes, marvelous. Hayi sifika ke emaphethelweni kwehlelo lethu lamhlanje Zulukandaba besixoxa ke labanye bethu abavela awade bese South Africa, uVusumuzi Sibanda, lo Bongani Mkhwanazi kunye lo Dennis Juru. Yes, marvelous. We are coming to the end of the show and I would like to thank everyone who participated.
Yes, Chris, and like you said, let's thank you to all our guests, and we also thank you, our listeners, for always listening to our programs. Let's meet again in our next programming. I'm Marvelous Mhlanga in Washington, saying have a very good night.
And I'm Chris Gande. Let's meet again same time next week. Good night.